A brief morning to you, our wonderful viewers and listeners. This is OneTV on the One Network, different city of Port Harcourt, Rivers State, Nigeria. Today is another beautiful Thursday, the 28th day in the month of April 2022. Of course, it is the last Thursday of this lovely month, and gradually come to the end of the month of April 2022. I welcome our official to newspaper review this lovely Thursday morning. And of course, our lead story for discussion during the parliament, which will be coming up after the paper this morning, is have to do with the elections and resignation of political office holders as ahead of the primaries in various political parties. And of course, we'll be looking at a look. At least 13 commissioners have resigned their appointments in Sokoto State ahead of the primary elections in accordance with the Electoral Act, bringing the total number of commissioners that have resigned in order to contest elections to over 60 across the 36 states. But then, just as the top echelon of the ruling party, All Progressive Congress, APC, may face disqualification from contesting in the party's primaries slated for May 30 and June 1st, 2022, following their failure and refusal to resign ahead of the primary elections. So this is what we'll be looking at this morning during the parliament. But before then, I welcome to newspaper review this morning. As remain your host, Cephas Ibabuchi Ugochukwu, and together with me this morning is my partner,
Didi West. So good morning, viewers.
Mr. Didi West, you are welcome once again.
It was a pleasure.
Okay, wonderful viewers and listeners, let us take a look from the national dailies this morning as we start right away with the Punch newspaper that has the big story there, that at least 13 commissioners have resigned their appointments in Sokoto State ahead of the primary elections in accordance with the Electoral Act, bringing the total number of commissioners that have resigned in order to contest elections to over 60 across the 36 states of the Federation. Which I'll be discussing this in details during the parliament, but let's take a look from the headlines as we can find in the papers this morning. Now, from the topmost part of the Punch, you have subsidy hits 1.35 trillion naira in 4 months. NNPC to deduct 672 billion naira. Details you can read up there on page 24 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Okay, below that we have the following headlines this morning. Senate prohibits ransom payment. Adoptive families seek talks with bandits. On page 30, you can find that story in the Punch newspaper this morning. And still on the Punch, we have drug test. NMA backs NDLEA. NBA demands legal backing. On page 2, you can find that story. FG stakes LG's share 725 billion naira as federal allocations rises. Page 10, you can find details of that story. Now, coming down below that, we have EFCC extradicts fraud suspects to US over $148,000 scam. Page 7, you can find that story. Afenifere seeks unity government, says Buhari has failed. On page 8, you can find that story on the Punch newspaper. Now, to the big story there, you can find it very boldly written. You have Electoral Act. More commissioners step down as Buhari's ministers refuse to go. You can find details of that story on page 2 of the Punch with the following riders. Governor Tambuwa's 11 commissioners, SSG, Chief of Staff, resign. Amosu joined presidential race. Yahaya Bello, Nwajuba pick forms. I won't resign, says Ngige. And finally, on the right, that you have NLC flails campaigns amid ASU strike. Okay, you have the picture story as you can find in the Punch newspaper this morning, boldly as displayed on the cover page of Punch. You have Lagos traders protest shooting of businessmen. Killer cop, celebrator disappear. Okay, very sad story, but the story you can find on page 4 and page 5 of the Punch newspaper. Now, below that big story, you have Ondo youths chase lawmakers over poor performance. Politicians blame opposition. We're going to talk about that. Politicians blaming opposition because of poor performance. I wonder what that is going to look like, but we're going to make little analysis on that. But you can read of that story on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. Just after that, you have a two killed in Oyo, AURTW, PMS clash. Please begin probe. You can also find that on page 4. And then still on Punch, you have a FG selected states to spend 120 billion naira on purchases orders. You can find that on page 16 of the Punch. Now on the bottom page, as you can find on the cover page of the Punch, you have apprentice flees to Seme as Lagos wife gives birth to quadruplex. Very funny. You can say his wife gave birth to quadruplex, and the young man have to take it on his heels rather, heading over to Seme. I mean, poverty in the country have made the man to do all of that. But you can find that story on page 4 and page 5 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Fire cuts TB Joshua's property, destroys tomb shelter. On page 8, you can find that on Punch newspaper this morning. And finally, from the cover page, as you can find on the Punch this morning, we have 10 die in Lagos Ibadan road crashes. FRSC blames speeding. Okay, these are the stories, top stories making the headlines in the Punch this morning. Now, to the stories this morning, Mr. Didi. One of story that caught my fancy. Let's leave aside the commissioner stepping down, because we're going to be discussing that in details this morning during the parliament. But then, in Ogun State, youths chase lawmaker over poor performance, and the politicians have blamed opposition for that. Now, what do you make of that this morning?
We want to congratulate the opposition party that did it. If the people are not performing, and people are chasing them, and then rather than taking cognizance of the letting the constituency down, and they are blaming the opposition, I want to congratulate the opposition. Please do more, so that people across the country will know that the opposition can influence people against you.
Okay, definitely also influencing the youths out there. But the most important thing is that you didn't perform.
Yes.
Non-performance as a legislator, and the people have to call you back. To me, this is a very welcome and superb development. I encourage every youth out there, every constituents out there, when your lawmakers whom you elect to represent you are not performing, call them back, chase them out of office. And I believe that is the only way that people can really sit up to the core. And I believe this should be an eye-opener to every other lawmaker out there, to know that yes, if I fail to perform, my people are all there watching. This is democracy, for crying out loud.
This is just the beginning. I saw the this information earlier, and I said, thank God, because this is just the beginning. The era when politicians did whatever they thought they could do and get away free is over.
Yeah.
The frustration, the poverty, the letdown, the high promises, especially what has happened in the last 7 years, has opened the eyes of everybody to say this is the time we must make our votes count.
Yeah.
And if we vote somebody out of sentiments or whatever, and they are proving that they can't be relied on, chase them.
Okay, chase them away, and that is sung by a popular musician. Majafere said, chase them away when they fail to perform. So when a politician fail to perform, because it beats my imagination that we have a member of House of Assembly, a representative, a House of Representative, and then a senator. Year in, year out, we don't see any bill they seem to sponsor or move motion for anything. And I ask myself, what kind of law does people go there to do? You're a lawmaker, you don't make any law, but you go home with all the fat pay every month. Yet, the people cannot benefit or feel the impact of your representation in those places. Talking about constituency projects, we don't still see anything. We are seeing senators come, senators go. And you ask yourself, where are the constituency projects that these guys have been giving billions of naira for every year? But then, chasing them away, we need to start that right. So those Ogun youths, kudos to you, and need to do more. And it's an outlet to every other youth out there. When representative fails to perform, what do? Chase them away. So I'm not sticking to Majek Fashek's song this time around. Now, going back to top of the the paper, subsidy hits 1.35 trillion naira in 4 months. NNPC to deduct 672 billion naira. Does that give us any good signal for Nigerian economy?
When President Goodluck Jonathan was in power, these same people who are now in power had a nationwide protest that subsidy did not exist.
Yeah.
That trying to take away, later they said trying to take away subsidy was to put the masses in jeopardy, in all kinds of financial constraints. And now all kinds of gimmicks are being applied to make that same subsidy to stand. You see, the truth is that no matter how hard a deceiver goes on, deception will unveil.
Yeah.
Like I wrote somewhere, truth does not bow down to anybody. Yeah. It does not cower to anybody. It does not shudder to anything. At the end of the day, truth will prevail. Meaning that over time, the opposition, this party that is now in government, lied to the people. Because if they had told them, yes, what Jonathan was doing is correct, and then the finances of the country was better, by now would have gone over the issue of subsidy and be doing something else.
Yeah.
That's number one. But how did this subsidy become so bad? First of all, it was said that we were producing locally, but government was reducing the cost on the people. Now we are not even producing, so subsidy must increase. And why should we have 4 refineries non-producing? NNPC is deducting what? I don't know what they are deducting for. As far as we are concerned, since 1999 to date, NNPC has continued to be a place where people just deduct money and run away. It is time for us to demand that our 4 refineries and other refineries should work. We should not be talking about Dangote's refinery, no.
Yeah.
That even the same NNPC is a shareholder in. By now we should be talking about 8, maybe 10 refineries cut across different parts of the country. Then let us begin to export petrol. Let us begin to export AGO. Let us begin to export kerosene. We will not be in this kind of mess we are in. It's deception.
It's really deception, because if you go back to the history surrounding this subsidy of a thing, Nigeria never bargained that subsidy should still be in place up to date. But because of the laxity and failure from part of the government, we still have subsidy still having a very big burn on the country. But if you go back to the 70s, when we had the oil boom, we are refining the product here in the country. The international market, there was serious, and Nigeria was making a hell of money from there. Now when we had a recession in terms of oil, and Nigeria was not able to produce, due to, I would say, redundancy from the part of the government, we are now importing the refined product. The government said, okay, fine, let us now subsidize the landing cost of this product so that the poor masses can actually afford it, pending when the refineries are put in place. Now, from the 70s to date, does it mean the government have not been able to put refineries in place? We heard sometime last year when the government said I spent about $15 billion to fix the Port Harcourt refinery. And I asked myself, Port Harcourt refinery was producing, you were deducting, as rightly said, was there no provision for a depreciation? Because I know that if you go to accounting, once there's any capital project, there must be provision for depreciation, which is money used to maintain the facility. So it simply means that in Nigeria today, there's no provision for depreciation in government-owned properties. Look at Ajokuta Steel Mill. They done that today. That means there's no provision for that. The 4 major refineries around this country, all of them, they done that. I'm still preaching subsidy. Buhari went to the Senate sometime last 2 weeks to present a kind of a provision to his or an addition to his budget, where provision was made for subsidy at the rate of 4 trillion naira. Outrageous.
Let me say something here. One of the biggest sources of thievery in the NNPC is what they call TAM, turnaround maintenance. It's bold-faced stealing. There's no we won't wear its raincoat here. That is bold-faced stealing. But I can assure you that provisions have been made for depreciation before now.
Yeah.
What has happened is that the steel mill you spoke about, NNPC, have been seen as sources of free money.
Yeah.
And that is why nobody has been held responsible for the letdown that is going on. Like I said last week, somebody should go to jail.
Of course.
Because of what is happening in the NNPC.
Mm-hmm.
As long as anybody tries to get things done correctly, the person is let out of the system. Because, and this is not a part of the country. People from every part of the country are dipping their hands into these monies, and it's barefaced stealing.
Okay, barefaced stealing, and things need to be done quickly, because Mr. President, it will be quite unfortunate if you leave the office without fighting corruption to a minimal, reducing corruption to a minimal.
As the Minister of Petroleum.
As the Minister of Petroleum, because the whole fraud we're talking about here is coming from that same ministry where you are in charge of the ministry. So please, Mr. President, and I believe to an extent, the Silva should explain to Nigerians where all these deductions are being taken to, and why our refineries are still redundant and none is functional. We are hoping on a Dangote refinery. What an aberration! What an aberration! What an aberration! But then we shall be taking more discussion on that as events unfolds itself. So quickly take a look at this. Senate prohibits ransom payment. Adoptees family seek talks with bandits. Senate says don't pay ransom to adopters anymore. Then is there any provision to fight this adoption in the country outside paying of ransom to these kidnappers?
You know, some lawyers were telling us in a group discussion some time ago that you do not make a law that will not be practiced.
Yeah.
And then you do not make a law only for a particular period. Laws are meant to last. So if the laws are just for a particular period, then they were not meant to be laws. They could have been just rules that could be, change after. But for the Senate, fortunately, it's not an act. It's just maybe a motion.
Okay.
But I can assure you that even those that passed that motion do not believe in what they were saying, because they are dealing, like we said, Nigeria has become a country where we celebrate dealing with the symptoms rather than dealing with the cause, the cause of a problem. Why do we have abductions? Why do we have people asking for ransom? Yes, if we are not going to pay them, what are we doing to deal with the economic factors that have led to this, the political factors that have led to this, the disharmony? Somewhere I had mentioned that what politicians say at the back, where people are not there, if it is, they bring it forward and say it, we'll stone most of them.
Okay.
So their supporters are only acting on what they know that is real.
Yeah.
Yes, because you know that what they tell us in public is not what is really happening at the back.
Okay, that's so quickly. Let me just take some headlines you can find inside the pages of our Punch this morning. Very interesting of them. Judge rejects Elon Musk bid to free tweets from oversight. Lagos PDP screen aspirants for Senate, Rep, others. Nigerian investigative journalist Soyombo wins prestigious Oxford Fellowship, a very wonderful one. Okay, still on that, inside pages of Punch. Strike, political class worse than Boko Haram, according to Sanu. It's laughable, but then that seems to be true to an extent. Although missing corps member found dead, NYSC probes killing, a very sad one there. Okay, polygamy. My number one, Yul Edochie, his first wife. That means he has more than one wife. I'm hearing that for the very first time. Okay, so on point, we have CSO slams Wike over donations to Sokoto, Kaduna, others. I mean, the River State is exceedingly rich to donate to these states. It's your state, so you tell us more about that. Political donation. Akwa Ibom government resolves Ibeno Elaje crisis, shares relief materials. 2023, I'm qualified to lead Nigeria, says Tambuwa. Okay, so on point, we have Osun 2022. We don't want inconclusive elections, says INEC. Hunters shave people's hair in Borno, okay, Benue, Otun calls for arrest. Okay, still on there we have Akwa Ibom government. Okay, I've taken that before. Varsity set to establish 5 study centers in Katsina. Report doctors, nurses who shun hospitals. Okowa's wife says, I believe you give them a lot of incentives and their pay were taken care of. Fake and make that statement. Okay, 2023, I have capacity to curb insecurity, according to Fayemi. APC ex-secretary Akpanudege obtains Akwa Ibom governorship form. My stepbrother threatened to kill me, sexual abuse victim. Improve security in schools, CSO charges government. Dragging Jonathan into 2023 contest, ploy to rubbish image, according to Cleric. Okay. Anambra police community differ over government's attacks on members. 2023, a question says, APC will retake Benue, Akume vows. 2023 will, okay, I will probe jail ex-governors who looted Ogun Treasury, says PDP aspirants. We're used to hearing that story every time, but then who is going to do that? Only time we surely tell. Okay, still on point, you have Electoral Act. More commissioners resign as Buhari's ministers refuse. I wonder why they're refusing. Imo explosion. Senate mourns victims, warns against recurrence. Okay, we discussed that 2 days ago in our parliament and the radio. But we tell that on Saturday morning, over 100 persons were roasted to death in a forest known as Abaezi Forest in Ohaji local council over the illegal mining activity that really burst into flames. And over 100 persons were actually roasted to life. And yesterday, the Imo State government, 2 days ago, Imo State government conducted a mass burial for all the victims. But then, so there's very sad incident. Very sad incident. Lassa fever kills 6 in Gombe. 1 receiving treatment. Okay, I think these are the major headlines. So many of them can find a point this one. So take time to get the point this morning and take a look on every headlines you can find there this morning. Okay, let's go back to the papers as we have this morning, as we take a look right away from the Guardian newspaper. So Guardian has the front headlines you can find on the front page of the paper this morning. Fayemi Amosu Nwajiba enters Wells APC presidential aspirants. You can find story right there on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. 14 years on, Lagos Airport awaits runway lights to end blackout. It's an embarrassing story that Lagos State is still witnessing blackout. Lagos State Airport still witnessing blackout. But then we shall be discussing that in I have to take a look from the various headlines this morning. But I read of that on page 10 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. So on Guardian, which is the major story this morning, power sector, FG sinks small funds despite low performance. And the story has it that to boost electricity supply, the Federal Executive Council, that is the FEC, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, again approved multi-billion naira contracts for the power sector yesterday. Minister of Power Abubakar Aliyu, while briefing State House correspondents, said all 3 memos presented by his ministry scaled through, adding that the approvals were for the purchase of major electricity transmission equipment. But let us see if this really helps to boost electricity supply in the country today, which you make a comment on that. But let's still go back to the papers this morning to see what they still have for us. Okay, still on their punch, Vanguard rather, we have another headline that says FG states LGAs share 226 billion in March. Excess crude account stands at $35 million. Senate, he said, I'm going to make a comment on that. Senate rejects Terrorism Act at loss payment of ransom. On page 4, you see that story there. Then on page 21, you see the story that says Lagos state government has failed me, says man whose school was seized. Okay, you can get then on page 6 you have the story that says again court adjourns hearing of Kanu's suit against FG. On page 7 you have the story that says Wike declares Guba aspirant wanted. Who is that Guba aspirant that Wike declared wanted? But then get details of that right there on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. On page 30 you have the story that says again bandits kill 19 Irigwe natives in Kaduna. What a sad story this morning. Okay, below that you have which is the last headline we can find on the front page of the Guardian. Says thousands storm APC secretariat as Yahaya Bello picks nomination forms. So these are the stories you find on the cover page of the Guardian. Before I take a look from the inside page, let's not make a let's just comment on the federal government sinking billions of naira in the power sector despite low performance. What do you make of that?
Like we have been talking about the oil, petroleum and gas sector.
Yeah.
The power sector has been a huge well where it's like a big gaping hole where things are. I like the word there. Sinks more. FG sinks more. Sinks more funds. They didn't say it does not show that there is hope.
Okay.
So much has been done and said about power in this country, and we are asking whether the people in government realize that if Nigeria can have just 18 hours of power supply daily, the amount of economic activities that will come up. But you see, this tendency to pad, okay, they pad contracts, then the contract execution is done shoddily, or what is put in place is not what was expected, because by now we should say this is the capacity of power the entire country needs.
Yeah.
And every year or every 2 years we will do this part. So over a period of time, the government can actually say that where we need about 56 to 60 kVA, or we have been 6,000 kVA, we've been able to do 2,000, or we have been able to do 1,000. If the country needs a certain range, the engineers can speak to us, and this range is shared over maybe 8 to 10 years, and each government comes to execute that part. But by those 10 years, the entire country, Ghana has full power supply.
Yeah.
South Africa has full power supply, and we seem to have earned more in foreign exchange over the years before this period. So there's no excuse. It's just a case of people not being committed to Nigeria. They are more committed to their pockets. It's sad. It's so sad,
because if you look at the history behind this power problem in this country, we can go back to the time of Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yes.
I remember $10 million was released.
16 billion.
$16 billion, yes, was released for this power issue, and all through the stuff of Obasanjo in office, nobody heard anything about power and power. And today we have so much to talk about a plenty power supply in the country. There are communities today who don't know what is power supply for the past 20 years. That is how bad it is. And economic activities is dying on daily basis. And as rightly said, many persons are relying on diesel and fuel to carry out economic activities, which is causing high cost of manufactured products in the country. Just yesterday, the bread bakers said they are going to increase the price of bread because they can't afford to continue running costs at the rate of which the diesel is going every day. That simply implies that if we had power supply in the country today, we should be talking about more industrialization of the country. I keep giving this analysis.
And things will be cheaper.
And things will be cheaper. Talking about the Agbada Industrial Estate, we used to know far back then. We used to be very busy industrial hub, but today go to Agbada, they've all shifted to Ghana. Meaning that you have to go to where production will be cheap. They produce there, Nigeria cannot buy manufactured product, which you can ordinarily manufacture because of what? A plenty power supply.
Even right here in this program,
yeah,
we had to restart because power supply
was something else.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
During the $16 billion dollar saga, Honorable is still in the House of Representatives. Elumelu was almost put into trouble because of his insistence to find out what happened to the $16 million. Yeah. He was somehow some charges came up, and then the young man had to leave the campaign he was running. But because we would have found out what happened to the $16 billion that was earmarked for power. During the power. So it goes down the road.
Honestly, that still not be done because within a space of a week we had the national grid collapsing twice. And up to Nigerians have not been told. I've not really been told this is the cause, and this is what we are doing to fix the national grid. But then we hope that something good will come out, as federal government has sank billions of multi-billion contracts into the power sector. I hope that this time around the contract will yield something meaningful.
Let me just, the government should tell us how many megawatts of power Nigeria
consume on a daily basis.
How much do we need?
Okay.
We are so population with so number of households approximately. What do we need in megawatts? Then we can begin to systematically plan. They know what to do. They know what to do.
They need to do what they need to do so that the country can be a better place for each and every one of us. Now let's take a look from some of the headlines you can find inside the pages of a Guardian. It says, Brute for president. Nigeria's security challenges and matters arising. Brute for the president. We hope he will come out and do something good. Governor Mohammed imposes curfew on Bauchi community. Okay. 7 pupils, students from moral decadence, social vices. You need to read the full details of that right there in the Guardian newspaper. Okay. Abaizi explosion. Imo government rules out compensation for victims' families. It is out of their carelessness that made them to lose their life. So don't expect any compensation from distinguished Senator Hope Uzodinma, the governor of Imo State. Senate rejects Terrorism Act at laws payment of ransom. NCC pulls cybercrime losses in Nigeria at $500 million, set to implement DMS. Thousands storm APC secretariats as Yahaya Bello picks nomination forms. Okay, still on Vanguard, we have 2023 intrigues, emerging issues within Rivers PDP. Fayemi Amosu Nwajubia entry swears APC presidential aspirant. Of course, you can still find that on the cover page. Only athletes with medal prospects will represent Nigeria in Mauritius, says Okowa. Okay, 14 years on, Lagos airports awaits runway lights. I think I'm going to comment on that quickly. Boni distributes 2.2 million insecticides treated nets in Yobe. 13 Adama PDP lawmakers declare defecting Kwada's seat vacant. Northeast Group knocks NEF scribe. Others over PDP ticket controversy. More trouble for APC in Bauchi as group indicts Dogara. Youth groups gives Jonathan 7-day ultimatum to declare for presidency. Jonathan declared for presidency in the country. Is that a good omen for the man?
Certainly not.
Certainly not. Okay. Peace returning to Oyo APC as Abbas takes oath of office. A good one there. Another Rivers APC chief rejects Cole as consensus aspirant. But the man was elected on consensus arrangement, but some APC members are rejecting that. That's to show that this consensus arrangement will have a lot of negativity in party. What do you make of the consensus arrangement as a mode of primary elections?
You see, if we continue to play Godfather politics, we'll end up with this kind of challenges.
Okay, and that is something we need to really kick against seriously in our political system, because it's all about godfatherism, favoring who the godfather chooses to favor. Okay, on sports, we have something that says miracle keeps hope alive ahead of Commonwealth Games in judo trials. Falcons home-based Eagles no openness as draw ceremonies hold in Morocco. 2 years after failed attempts, Bosso Flying Eagles jet out for WAFU B Championship. Okay, Junior Tennis League bids with 11 teams. Liverpool roll over Villarreal to put one foot in Champions League final. Yes, ended 2 goals to nothing in favor of the Liverpool team yesterday. Nigeria, UK to strengthen trade relations. We are fully ready to roll out 5G, says MTN. Okay, so many other headlines you can find right there in the Guardian newspaper. So from there, we'll now go straight to the Nation newspaper. So let us take a look from the Nation and see what the Nation has for us this morning. Okay. To the Nation, we have the following headlines this morning. On the top page, we have ministers insist no resignation before primary. You can see that story on page 4 of the Nation. Let's seek foreign aid to free adopted train passengers. That's what you can find on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. So on Nation, UBA post 183.9 billion naira gross earnings in first quarter. Page 8 you find that story. ASU 1.6 trillion naira yearly foreign that should be foreign trips, enough to fix varsities. On page 5 you find that story. And still below that we have a Ajokuta Steel, Etape iron ore get a 258 million naira revival cash. I think that's a very good one there. But then the big story says, and you can find that, okay, the big story on Nation has it that 2023 battle for tickets pits governors against senators. On the other says tension in states over slots, parties moderate struggle for position. That is the big story you can find in the Nation newspaper this morning. That's actually straight from the cover page and continues on page 4 of the paper. And the story has it that the battle for senatorial tickets ahead of next year's election has pitted governors against senators nursing re-election in many states. Now the governors who belong to the ruling All Progressives Congress APC and the opposition People's Democratic Party PDP are completing their second terms on May 29 next year. But it's a serious battle between some senators who are seeking re-election and governors who are seeking to become senators in the same state, the same senatorial zone. But let us see, because a very big battle now of the gladiators. But let us see who have a better side of the other. So page 4 on the cover page, you have that story right there in the Nation newspaper. Below that, and which is the headline, okay, we have APC gets petition to disqualify Abiodun. Why? You can find out details of that on the okay in a Guardian newspaper, a Nation this morning. And on the bottom line of the Nation paper, we have the story that says INEC resumes issuance of 30,000 PVCs in Lagos. Page 2 you find that story. 4 burned to death on Lagos Ibadan road. Page 2 also you find that story. So these are the stories you can find right there in the Nation newspaper. Now let's look at this. Okay, we shall be discussing this during the parliament, talking about ministers who insisting on no resignation before primaries. We shall discuss that in details during the parliament. But then look at this. Let's seek foreign aid to free adopted train passengers. Is that a better means to this?
It's only a sign that the parents and families of the people whose people have been abducted have lost faith in the government.
Yeah,
that is some of it all, and we can't blame them. Not knowing what could be happening to these people. Fortunately, there is a story that the photograph of 62 of them was captured by the abductors and posted on social media. So at least there's still hope that they are alive, but anything could happen.
Yeah.
So we're not surprised that people are asking for foreign aid.
Okay, we're not surprised. Now looking at the battle, which is the biggest battle of the moment, state governors who are jostling to become senators, with the senators of that same state in the same senatorial zone jostling for re-election. What do you make of such a battle today?
Well, they say it's politics, but we think that it's people who go into office and don't look for any reason to stay in power.
Yeah.
Somebody was bragging the other day that he has been a local government chairman, he became a minister, he became a governor, so now he must be president, and only death. The question is, if he leaves power, doesn't he have any other thing to do? Must you be in power once you get into? Okay, if there's a contest, what if you step down for the other person? Won't you earn more respect? I remember in Lagos State, there was the current Minister of State for Health was in the Senate and held a very important office in the Senate.
Yeah.
But Tinubu made sure that he left for his wife to go to the Senate, because of family interest, because of certain interests.
Yeah.
And when the man saw that it was becoming a serious matter, he let go.
He left it for
so. If this woman that's currently there, senators, if she did not become senator, what would happen to that family? So it's personal agenda running here. People think that once they get into office, they must keep themselves and their cronies in that place, because they are in Nigeria. Politics is a profession; it's an occupation.
Oh, see, and that's not supposed to be so, because we are seeing so many, like in America, for instance, they just asked the American president, talking about Donald Trump, was a renowned businessman. His business was well pronounced, and he survived based on his business. We all know the work he was doing. Confirmed businessman before becoming American president. Now, how many people can we look in Nigeria and say this is their business before now?
And then when they leave power, they can fall back.
That is the problem, and that's why they can stick their neck everything to make sure that they retain power, because it's obvious that has become their business venture. No other way to do. Something that politics is my profession. Now, they can't say both that my profession is politics, and I'm going to wonder, how can politics become someone's profession? Is there any business called politics? But in Nigeria today, politics is actually a business. You go into politics, you make money, become rich, and the question is, where do you get that money from? What are you trading? Because I know business is all about trading, selling and buying. Now, what do you sell and what are you buying? And that's the big problem today.
It's Ajip, any government in power.
Good, that is just the truth about it.
That's why if APC is in power, they all flock
to APC.
If tomorrow ABGA is the one in the federal, you see everybody flocking to ABGA, etc.
And that is Nigerian mentality and Nigerian problem, and that is why people are fighting. Because, and what problem with this problem of immunity clause? Because when there's no immunity clause on governors and senators, they will be jostling for this. Because once I'm a governor, I can do anything. Immunity clause covers me. I go to the Senate, the same immunity clause covers me, and that's why they're all jostling to make sure that after here I go there, and that is that. But then let us see how that battle will finally end up in the months to come. Now let's go straight to the next paper up before this one. That is the Daily Trust newspaper. So I'm going to be treating Daily Trust, and Daily Trust leaves us with the following headlines this morning. Day 27. Okay, that's not clear. Say 2023. Why aspirants must undergo drug tests before primaries, according to NDLEA. FEC approves 853 million naira for Ajokuta Steel, Etakpe iron ore concessioning. Okay, below that we have the big story: disqualification threat. How APC guidelines put Amechi, Ngige, Malami, others in tight corner. Under there we have some writer that says aspirants have 72 hours to resign. I am not aware of new rules, according to the Labour Minister. And you have Nwajuba pays 100 million naira for presidential forms. You read up all of this right there in the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Okay, on the right hand corner of the paper we have mass criminals. Okay, National Assembly criminalizes ransom payment. 2 Zamfara emirs deposed over banditry. Why I shot 9 kids playing football, according to Edo Vigilante. You get all of that in the Daily Trust newspaper. And then finally there on the bottom page of the paper you have 30 days after government yet to rescue Kaduna train hostages. With the rider, it is been a month of trauma, victims' families, and finally you have do everything to release adoptees, according to Colonel Dangiwa. Okay, that's the headlines you can find right there in the Daily Trust newspaper. Now, FG approves 853 million naira for Jokuta Steel, Etakwe iron ore concessioning. Is that a big relief for us in those government properties that have been lying idle for years?
It should have been. In normal circumstances, countries, it should have been. But I don't think we can call Nigeria a normal country.
Okay.
This concession back and forth on the steel ruling means this may be the 6th time since we went into democracy, since 1999, that funds will be allocated for the same thing. What happened to the former funds? What was the outcome? Okay, if it was at this state and you put so amount into the steel rolling mills, where did you bring it to? What is left to be done? But you go to those places, nothing is happening. When we begin to discuss this, and sometimes you get to a point where you're asking yourself, is there any point discussing things? People should just rise. And we are saying, if this thing continues like this, we are going to have something worse than NSAS. We are coming to a point where even the soldiers that are instructed to go and shoot will join the people that are going to protest, because they are also victims of this. This is simply outrageous corruption. You keep allocating funds to a steel rolling mill, allocate funds to power, allocate funds to oil and gas, allocate funds to... We heard that the country was coming up with an airline. Till today, we don't know what is happening.
Nothing.
It is just bold-faced thievery that is going on in government. And now we are saying EFCC should rise and bear its name indeed. Otherwise, NSAS is a small thing if care is not taken.
Okay, NSAS is a small thing. Because of time, let us quickly take a look at this before we go to the last paper of for review. 30 days after government yet to release Kaduna train attack hostages. These adopters made a comment that government should come and negotiate, that government know exactly what their demand is. And we can recall that most of their commanders are still in custody of the government, but they are not able to say in clear terms, this is our demand. Now, 30 days, the adoptees are still under government's, who are still under the adopters' hostage. Now, is it not right for government to now go and negotiate or find other means to free these people that are still there?
You see, I want to say something. Let's link this story to the Senate passing something that
okay, that's like criminalizing
ransom payment. This is bad communication.
Yeah.
It means that there's some missing gap between the legislature and the executive.
Yeah.
We should by now have a policy. Now, if you say ransom payment cannot happen, then what are you doing to protect people from being abducted? Or if they are abducted, you do something quickly. There is serious misgovernance going on. People are just saying things that sounds interesting to the ears, but not practicable. Yeah. I don't know how come the Senate arrived at this, and I'm hoping the House of Reps has not. I have not heard that the House of Representatives, that's why I say that it's still a motion.
Yeah.
Government should sit back and seek for ways. What are these people complaining about? First of all, before they came to abduct and you have their commanders and all, what was the reason that these people took up arms against government in the first place? Okay. When we're able to address that, then perhaps we are ready to find solutions. Okay,
so we hope that this issue will be addressed sooner so that we can have a better solution to all of these security problems confronting and of course weighing the country seriously at the moment. Finally, we take a look from the Daily Sun newspaper, which is the last paper of a review. this morning. We have a space of 7 minutes to do all of that. Now, from the topmost right corner of the Daily Sun, we have 2023 supporters storm APC secretariat as Yahaya Bello picks nomination form. You can find that on page 28 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Abia First Lady, Saraki's wife, energized the Sun Awards. Okay, that's a very good story there. You can find. Okay, we have UBA post 18% growth in earnings as profit hits 44.5 billion naira. 25 on page 25, you find that full story there. Okay, the big story says APC set to disqualify aspirants over resignation. Page 6 has the story with the riders. Party's deadline to political appointees to quit expires this weekend. And the rider says, I won't resign, vows Ngige, citing court order on section 84, article 12 of the Electoral Act as amended. Okay, read the full story of that right there on page 6 of the Daily Sun newspaper. Okay, on the bottom part of the Daily Sun front page, you have kidnapping. Senate threatens Terrorism Act, makes ransom payment grievous offense. Page 6, page 26 and page 27, you find that story with the rider. Colonel Umar tax FG on Kaduna train attacks victims. Okay, beside that, you have $418 million Paris Club refund. Court grants substituted service of contempt charge against 4 SAMs. Page 27, you have full details of that. Afenifere slams Buhari on State of the Nation. Page 26, you have the story with the rider. Says president has shown incapacity, lack of will. Now, on the final note, you have the bottom page of the cover page of the Daily Sun. You have 2023. Alake backs Osibajo as Anyim Fayemi intensify lobbying. Amosu Nwajoba join presidential grades. You get a full details of that story right there on page 26 of the Daily Sun newspaper. So within a space of a minute or two, let us just comment on the issue of okay, we shall be discussing the Amechi's issue, the other issues on the People's Parliament. But then I'm looking at the issue here that says 2021 Alake backs Osibajo. Now look at the issue of Osibajo's presidential ambition. Yesterday we read the story that said that is a total betrayal to his master, Tinubu. Remember when Tinubu was governor of Lagos State, this man was his attorney general and his personal friend. And I meant to understand that it was Tinubu that actually picked this young man to run for the vice president of Nigeria, imposing or rather nominating for the vice presidential position. Now, you know, Osibajo just running for the president of Nigeria. Do you see it as any form of betrayal to Tinubu, or he has the right to contest? Not minding that the man actually made a comment that denying me to run for the president is a great injustice. Now look at his running, his ambition, linking to that is a big boss.
First of all, I want to say that somebody appointed somebody a commissioner does not make him a master. They are still citizens of this country.
Okay.
That I served as a commissioner, that it does not make you my master.
My master.
That means I'm your slave.
Yeah.
That is terrible reference by the media, especially the public, the mainstream media.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, from what I've read online from believable sources, not carry-go social media, from believable sources, Tinubu actually opposed the nomination of Yemi Osibajo. He wanted to be that position.
Okay, the vice president.
Yes.
Okay.
From believable sources.
Okay.
So this thing about treachery is not true.
Okay.
And he should please allow Osibajo to be.
Okay. Osibajo is allowed to be. It is a game of politics. Go to the primaries, and if your party gives you the ticket, go ahead. The party says no, we don't want you. You rest and support the order. And based on that note, we've come to the end of today's edition of the newspaper's review. The papers will be coming up in just a few minutes from now. I remain your host on the papers, Cephas Ibabtugoku remains my name, and I still have my big boss and my very good colleague who have been doing a wonderful work with me this morning.
Didi West.
Okay, Didi West is a wonderful pleasure being with you. So join us again for a special edition of the program. But then stay tuned because Parliament is coming your way right away. Thank you and God bless you.